So, intro to cooking with cast iron, you actually really do have to preheat it. It doesn't necessarily heat evenly, but it keeps the heat really well. So just take your time, heat it on a low to medium heat. This may take 5 to 10 minutes. Because cast iron is such a great conductor of heat, if you actually just carefully hover your hand over the bottom of the skillet, you can feel when the pan's ready to go. A lot of people are confused, they did all the seasoning and their food is sticking to the pan. Usually that's because they're putting cold food in a cold cast iron pan. One reason to get a cast iron skillet really is to sear things like meat. So another thing that people are maybe confused about when they're cooking with a cast iron is they tend to want to just move the food around a lot. And actually what we're trying to do here is build up a nice caramelized crust. So when you put any meat in your hot skillet, just leave it. Let it cook, and when you see the kind of brown crust forming on the outside, that's when you know it's ready to flip. So if you're trying to lift up your steak and it just will not give, it's probably just not ready yet. The meat will self-release when that crust is formed. Why we love using cast iron skillets at Tasty too is because you can start something on the stove and finish it in the oven. So you often hear that you can't cook acidic foods in cast iron skillets. However, if you have a good layer of seasoning on there, that's totally fine. You don't want to do a ton of, a big tomato sauce or a bunch of wine or vinegar, but a little bit's not really going to kill your seasoning. Don't be afraid to roast things like tomatoes in your cast iron skillet. The great thing about being able to cook with something on the stove top and finish it in the oven is you just have a lot more control. You can get a nice layer of caramelization from a high heat on the stove and then finish something cooking in the oven on a much gentler, radiant heat. So when you're cleaning your cast iron, you want to hit a sweet spot. If it's cooled down too much, the food will adhere and really stick to the pan. And if it's too hot and you put it under cold water, you can risk it cracking. So you want to wash the pan pretty soon after you use it. The most gentle way to clean your skillet is with hot water and salt and a non-metal scouring pad or the rough side of your sponge. The salt works as an abrasive and helps to scrub off any food that's on there without damaging the seasoning at all. Once you're happy that your pan is clean, give it another towel dry and then let it completely dry off either on the stove or in a warm oven just to make sure there's no lingering moisture. And that's going to protect it from rusting in the future. So lastly, we're going to put a protective layer of oil on the skillet before we store it. Carefully with a paper towel, rub that all along the inside. Turn up the heat until the oil is smoking, then turn it off and let it cool on the stove. The reason why we want to take it up to the smoking point is so that the oil doesn't turn rancid. Cast iron skillets may seem like a lot of work, but just follow these simple rules of seasoning and cleaning, and these pans will last you a lifetime. It's like loving a good woman. The more you give, the more you get back.